Hi, well, all the dry brushing is done and it's now a case of moving on to just adding a little bit of subtlety. Now, we could, working with paints, pick out the bricks, add in some colour wash to the tiles and the slates. However, sometimes colour wash can be a little harsh. It can also be a little bit more difficult to blend, especially if it dries quickly on a hot day or any time that you get called away. And once that's done, you're left with that ink wash, telltale ridge or line. So, as you can see here, I have a number of panels that have been detailed. You can see here with the red tile on the wall, there's a little subtlety shading going on where water would wash away or dirt would gather. You can see on top there, there isn't. The same with the slate roofs. Now slates are very, very thin and so very little shadow is there, but you do sometimes get a little detail of where the water drips over and just jumps across and creates a dark edge. Same for the bricks. We could prick out different bricks with paint, but it sometimes is not that subtle, and also it just takes a little bit of holding with the paint, and of course if the paint dries, then you're left with having to touch it up over again. So let me introduce you to water-based paint pens. They really are a good way of getting soft shading and some subtlety to things. So as you can see here, you've got the paint pen, and then all I'm doing is drawing in, literally drawing in where you want the shading to go. I'm using this sort of grey colour, whatever it's called, literally warm grey. As to use a black, it really is a harsh pen as well. So you can see it's quite linear. So using a clean brush and clean water, not too much, just enough to wet things. That's already started to dry, and then all I'm doing is softening off the edges, letting it run into the wet area. Yeah. Now the good thing is with the water-based paint pens and brush is that you can actually go back, touch up, repair, remove. So for instance, too much shadow there, I can actually remove it. I can soften off any areas that I might have missed, and you can blend them in. They're great for building models. As long as your surface is dead matte, or matte enough. So you can already see how that's dried fairly swiftly. I can continue, I can add a soft in, I can add to them as well. A bit more, you want a bit more dark up there maybe, on the gable end. Like so. You can add some rich, soft detail. As for the slate roof, it's a bit more harsher finish. Using the same warm pen, a ruler. It's got a lip on it. I've taped a little bit of masking tape there, which stops the pen from bleeding under. Make sure you got the right edge right way round, and then literally draw in your line. the ridge tile is. So you can add more. Didn't look very strong, did it? Make the edges a little bit rougher in places. Just gives it a variation that, if you imagine you had a street of these, each one would be slightly different to the other where the water runs. As for the brick, it literally is draw your bricks. It's so much simpler than necessarily painting and water. If you're a bit more confident with a pen, the nice thing is that you can actually, by pressure, add in a little bit more ink in places, and you just pick out the bricks that you want to have a little bit more definition. Use a yellow or an ochre. Don't necessarily need to do the whole brick either. Remember, bricks have a variety of colour within them. That just adds that little bit of pastiche realism to your build. Even though this is a soft shade, you can see that by overflowing, look how detailed it's just coming through. And again, if you're overcooking too many bricks, it is possible. You can see how much colour is being removed, hopefully, on the tissue there. You're just taking off excess ink. So you can even soften it. You can even pool a little bit of water. You can see it lifts the ink. Because of the etching, quite often the water won't go. That was me making a silly mistake. Now that adds a different, you can even rob paint. That'll soften those two bricks to a different density of ink wash. Just as a quick one, you can even soften off the edges of the slates, just to give it that a little bit more. This is less about creating artificial sunlight and shade, and more about creating those odd weathering effects that you'll get. If you look up onto this panel, there's a very minor green moss wash. Quite often chimneys up high where the water runs down to the gutter. Stark, very stark. But again, using a little bit of water, softening off that detail, and it just creates that very quick, very simple little addition of life and reality. Not trying to be real, I'm just trying to give the feeling of life in a model world. So I've got quite a few walls to do and pick out bricks, and then once that's done, we're on to the interior. So next video, hopefully I'll start explaining how to wallpaper. Bye.